I think the word there is, would you like 2020 hindsight? Absolutely. I can see 100 different ways that I could have learnt differently, got quicker results. But then sometimes the mistakes you make, the things that get you to the end goal, and you need to make them for yourselves.
We believe every Australian deserves a right to own at the very least 5 investment properties. I'm Adrian Trimboli.
And I'm Frank Ambezi, and welcome to the Invest in You podcast.
Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of it. An awesome quote and an awesome mindset minute, which ties in perfectly to today's guest, who I'm very, very, very excited to bring on, someone who has very much taught us what the meaning of failure is and how you must fail to achieve in all areas of your life. I'm very, very excited to bring on Mr. Nigel Letty, and I will see you very soon. Mr. Nigel Letty, very privileged to have you on. Welcome. How are you, my friend?
Very good, thank you, Adrian, and thanks for having me on board with the podcast. I'm looking forward to it.
No, absolutely. You've been a big part of why we've started this podcast, and honestly, I couldn't wait to have you on. So, like I always say, pinch yourself moments. For myself, this is a pinch myself moment to have a podcast, but then to have the great man on yourself. So very, very exciting. I'm going to jump right into it, Nigel, because
Please do.
Today's going to be an action-packed one. It's, as I said, the title of this podcast is Fail, Fail, Fail Until You Succeed. Now, I know with my dealings with you, which has been close to a year now, you've failed a shitload, right? Before we jump into the failures, I want to talk more about yourself. I haven't introduced you or who you are, so a bit about your story and a bit about your business and how you fell into the business, if you could.
I think the fail is where I would start. I wrote a book about it called The Wall, as you know, and it was all of my failures, and which ended up being all of my learnings, and my relationship with failure is something that I'm very comfortable with. And I think as a business owner, you need to be very comfortable with your failures. So fail forward is one of the sayings, and I continue to do that. I love the fact that I can learn from all of my clients. I learned from my own experiences, and as you know, I still have my own retail store with 10 to 12 staff. I see their failures, their learnings, and I try and make sure that with every one of my clients and every one of the customers and staff through the shop, that I embrace failure, and I always see the positives that come from those failures.
Absolutely. Awesome. You've taught me a hell of a lot. A lot of the things that we come to you with, and we've stuffed this up, we've stuffed that up, we've stuffed this up. I reckon probably safe to say you've made as many failures, if not a hell of a lot more, in a really positive note. But you've really changed kind of my outlook towards failure. I want to get into your story, because obviously you don't just come out of the womb and go to school and then fall into business coaching, right? So a bit about your story, and even how you did fall into the world of business coaching, which you're now in now.
Well, it's been a long journey of building my own businesses, which have been across manufacturing, wholesaling, retailing, franchising, importing, distribution, and sometimes building small teams, sometimes building up to 120 staff. And from those experiences, I found that I made an awful lot of mistakes. And one day I went to a presentation from Action Coaching, and I sat there having breakfast listening to this guy talk, and he nailed every problem that I had been experiencing for an awful long time. And I thought, how did this guy know? I didn't think anyone knew the problems that I was facing. But then as you get on a business coach and you start working with them, you start understanding that everyone's facing the same problem, which is time, team, money. And they seem to fall back into those three things time and time again. So at the end of the conversation, sorry, a bit of background noise there. At the end of the conversation, or the end of the breakfast, I just understood how much I could learn from someone else having a third-party view. And from employees, it is so hard to get honesty because they are wanting to maintain their job and they feel as though hitting you between the eyes with the truth is something that isn't a good career progression move. But in actual fact, really what I wanted was brutal honesty, and my business coach gave me that. And I was with my coach for 6 years.
Okay.
And when I sold the business in 2013, I rang him and I said, look, I'm sort of the time that I got really passionate and really enjoyed doing what I was doing was when I was helping my franchisees grow and implement systems and overcome their problems. And I felt like it was an introduction to my own coaching. The thing that I hadn't done was different business models. So I'd gone out of the bicycle industry, and most of even my manufacturing, importing, if the franchising, everything was done within an industry except for my motorsport businesses, where again I was in something that I was really passionate about. But if I lacked a little confidence as I was going into that business coaching side of things, it was the fact that I didn't really understand some other business models. And still today, one of the areas where I haven't worked is in food industry, like cafe or just restaurants, that sort of thing. And I was not confident about going into it. And my business coach, my previous business coach, said to me, you just don't understand how much you understand business modeling, financially modeling businesses and planning, because you do it really, really well. And I said, well, thank you, but I suppose I need to get in and find out what this is all about. Now, remember, I had 6 years of being on the other side of the table from a business coach. So I understood the methodology. I understood what we went through. I went through the learning journeys. And then all I had to do was start applying it to clients that came on board. And I found that I learnt very, very quickly that I was confident in that space. And I've spent the last 8 years coaching, and I am comfortable with any business model except food, because I've still never done it.
And won't? Not planning on?
They say that is a very difficult industry because of the wastage, the use by dates of product and the freshness of product. And hey, I'm comfortable with there being so many other business models out there that I can help. And if I could ever do a food area, it doesn't really faze me.
Yeah, cool. Now for myself, I know, because you've told us this many times and you drill it in us, almost every week, regarding your style of business coaching and what you do at Elevate Biz compared to your ex-business coach's style of coaching, which maybe before I even introduce it, if you already know what I'm talking about, the kind of the difference of the work-life balance and business, which you harp on about all the time, business and finance and getting that goal and that number is not everything. Do you want to touch on that?
Look, and thank you for bringing this up, because I am really passionate about the change in the way that I coach to the way that I was coached. And my coach, he came to me and said, my job is to make you the most profitable business that I possibly can. And what I realized many years later was that the money isn't the only thing that's important. It's actually about having a really good work-life balance, and that you're in I call it PMA, positive mental attitude. Well, when your life is falling apart, it's really hard to turn up to business and be inspiring and engaging for your team if you emotionally are feeling terrible. So my work-life balance has changed very much since that, and I've learnt an awful lot through my son, who at 40 years having a way better work-life balance than I had as a 40-year-old. But if someone had told me any different at my time at 40, I probably wouldn't have taken it on. I was on a mission and I was trying to prove something which I probably didn't need to prove. And that was that I could be, have the empire, that I could build the biggest business in the industry, which we did. And that's a lot of ego. And I really needed to take the ego out. And I now work with great people. And when the ego comes along, it's probably something that I try and get out of the relationship as early as possible and say, this isn't about proving anything to anyone. You make the decision of what you want in life. Let's be clear on your business serving you rather than you serving the business. Very important for me.
Very important, and actually quite interesting, because everyone wants the abundance. Everyone wants to be, have $15 million in the bank account, or have, on our side, 50 properties and whatnot. But there is so much more to that. And a lot of the time you'll find that, why are they doing it? I mean, for myself, I'm doing it to buy a house for my mum, or I'm doing it to build a family and do all the things that actually those things create. When you get into a zone of numbers, targets, and you forget about everything else, a lot of the times it's too late. And you get to a point where you go, I've hit 20 million, I haven't got a family, I haven't got this, I haven't got that. What have I done? So it's so super important for us. I mean, for myself personally, and the business that we run, to know that you need to live your life. You do need to live your life. Very important. I'm going to ask you a loaded question, Nigel. And I don't know where this could go, but I'm sure you're going to take it to a good place. Okay. In your opinion, why do you think that so many businesses actually fail?
I think I'm going to relate to the entrepreneurial myth, which is that the person who knows how to do the work knows how to run the business that does that work. And that is totally a myth. In most cases, and you don't have to go through a 4-year course before you go and open a business. What you can do is have a great idea and you can go and register the business name and start trading virtually tomorrow. With that comes an awful lot of risk, and there is an awful lot that the average person doesn't understand about small business. Small business is a very, very complex being, and there are so many responsibilities within it. And one of the first things that I do with a new client is work on their organizational chart. The second thing that I'll work on, or sometimes the first, depending on how profitable that business is when I get involved, is their financial model. Have they actually thought about how they're going to make a profit? How are they going to scale? How are they going to have freedom from their business over time, rather than just being an employee of the business? And this is an interesting fact, that a lot of the times when I get involved with a business, I find that the business owner is very proud to own a business, but when we work out how many hours they're doing, they're below the minimum wage. So they're very proud of owning their own business, and it's like a medal that they've got on their chest. I am a business owner. Isn't that fantastic? Except that the reality is their wife is working full time to bring in enough money so that they can actually put food on the table. That's not a great place to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for a lot of businesses, don't get me wrong, a lot of businesses that I come to work with are also extremely profitable, but they're lacking the challenge or lacking the vision of where they're going to take it and why. And a lot of the time, those business owners are still playing the martyr. They give everyone else their holidays and they pay people bonuses, but they actually work on a lesser wage themselves and do the most hours. I think that's more the point.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. I mean, it's a scary stat. I was chatting about it yesterday, but it's a scary stat of the amount of businesses that obviously fail in the first 5 years, but then towards the end of the business that actually don't sell or don't hand it off to someone else to keep running. They just literally shut the doors. I don't know if you have it on the top of your head, but the stats are scary. The odds are very much stacked against us entrepreneurs or business owners or employees in their own business, which is scary.
So the stats that do get thrown around is that 80% of businesses will go broke in the first 5 years. It may even be 3 years, come to think of it. And the other part of it is that 80% of businesses don't sell.
Wow.
Now, there's a reason for that. And 80% of businesses don't sell because there's been no preparation in actually making the business saleable before they go and put it on the market. Normally, the business owner has got to the point where they've just had enough. And if you look at their business growth curve, you'll see this massive acceleration for a business in the first 3 years. And then it slowly tapers off. And then when people get comfortable, it starts to go back down again. And as that business is going down, that's when they go, you know what, I've had enough. I just need to sell. And then they're totally unrealistic about what they're selling that business for. So the ideal scenario is that the business is prepared for sale at every day, every minute of the business's operation. Sure, you'd put an information memorandum together to show what the blue sky is. What is the business going to look like in the future? What is the business plan? If you've got a business plan ready to go and someone rang up and said, can I buy your business tomorrow? You know as well as I do, your business plan is already sitting there and you're already very clear on where this is going to go. Let me share that with you. So you get them on board and go, this is where we're going. Wow, I'd like to be part of that. That's a pretty easy business to buy. How many businesses out there are actually prepared in that way? Very, very few.
Which is interesting and scary. I want to, Nigel, keep the talk of failure. So this whole podcast, health, wealth, relationships, that's what we're really basing around. So I know you touched on it earlier about failure, right? But I don't want you to just talk about business. I want, if you can, span out to your health, your wealth, and failing on all of it, and kind of your views on failing. Is there such thing? Is it a positive thing? Is it a negative thing? Bit of a breakdown from your end.
Yeah, I mention and just go on a tangent just for a moment, and that is that I think everyone has the little voice in your head that is fighting you at every turn unless you're very clear on and have clear focus on what you want to achieve out of life. So if you're in a personal relationship and you're working towards a common goal, and now maybe that's saving the deposit for the house and then the area that you're going to live in and the number of kids you're going to have and all those sorts of things, then you're looking forward to an end goal, and all of the small failures on the way don't stop you from achieving that end goal. They just keep you between the lines, if you like. They keep on bouncing you back onto that path. It's when you don't have that long-term goal, and that means for your own fitness and health. I mean, fitness and health-wise, for me, I need a goal. I fall off the bus. It's very easy to go, why would I go out training? I do 250, 300 Ks on the bike a week. And it's very easy to go, if I've got no goal and nothing that I'm aiming for, to go, why do I keep doing this? No, I might just sleep in tomorrow morning. But then as soon as I pay my money for the entry fee, suddenly I get all fired up about going, no, I'm going to go and compete in that, and I want to be competitive. So suddenly the motivation is all back again. And it's again learning yourself about how to motivate, how to inspire yourself so that you achieve the goals you know you really want to achieve. I know that my mental health is so much better when I feel fit and my health is good. So I know that for me to stay fit and healthy, I've got to choose a few events during the year that keeps me motivated, keeps my focus, keeps my vision, so that I do the things that I need to do. It's exactly the same in business. It's exactly the same in a relationship.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Yeah, very good point, Nigel. Very, very good point. I want to kind of bring it back again. Now, obviously, from your old business coach, 6 years, it was all about money, 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 right? Which is brilliant. Money's great. Absolutely. Thinking back now, and obviously you've ran and operated a shitload of businesses in your time, right? Do you wish, not do you have regrets, but do you wish you did anything different with either the businesses or how you approached either business, personal life, health, anything that you wish you would have done differently?
I think the word there is, would you like 2020 hindsight? Absolutely. I would love to have done. I can see 100 different ways that I could have learnt differently, got quicker results. But then sometimes the mistakes you make are the things that get you to the end goal, and you need to make them for yourselves. Sometimes I talk to clients and I go, I have got the solution for you, and I know if I tell you it'll mean nothing, but if you go through the experience and actually make those mistakes for yourself, and they're always small ones that are, and I'll go, this is the path I see you going. If you go down that path, this is what I see. If you went down this path, this is what could possibly happen as well. Please consider. Now, you're committed to doing it this way. So I got a phone call from a client who had spent $15,000 on a show. And I said, oh, you committed? Yes. I said, okay, if you'd put that past me and you had given me the analysis of it, I would have definitely talked you out of doing that show, or at least come up with an agreement on what the KPIs were going to be for that show. And then, oh, well, too late now. So we played after the fact. At the end of the show, and having looked at the analysis, I said to her, would you do that show again? And she said, definitely no. And I went, what have you learned? And I said, okay, it cost you 15 grand to learn that, but I don't know that I could have talked her out of doing it. She was so much wanting to actually go with her gut and give it a big crack. Sometimes you got to do that, because I could have easily been wrong too. And I would have been happily wrong. If she got a great result, I would have been wrapped.
Yeah, cool. So then leading that back to you, there are a lot of things that you say, yep, could have done it wrong. Could have done it better, or wished you did it differently. Yep. But obviously you're not going to be at this point now if you didn't go through those same heartaches or the same pain or whatever it was, business, personal, wherever. So I take it you wouldn't have done things differently then, in hindsight?
I think if I could have learnt how to drop the ego, actually be more present with my staff in earlier days, because I was so focused. We talk about behavioural profiling, and we work a lot with DISC. And in my early days, my DISC was DC, which is dominant, driven, determined, but highly compliant. So I dotted the I's, crossed the T's, but very task orientated, not people orientated. and I was on a mission. And if you know someone like that, and you probably do, you find that they're not personable people, but you almost admire them for their drive and what they can achieve. Well, that's ego for being fulfilled. Because when people keep on giving you a pat on the back, especially your business peers who are going, man, have a look at that guy, he's achieving such huge goals, you go, wow, this is self-fulfilling. What it doesn't tell you about is the story of what you're actually missing out on in your life, which is the relationship side with those people, the time that you didn't have free with family and friends. You know, there's only 24 hours in the day. How you use them is up to you. Well, I was far too dedicated and probably could have got just the same result or even a better result by being less driven and more big picture about work-life balance. I wouldn't have gone and taken some of those big backward steps, which I have.
And that's super interesting. So again, I just want to refer back to the viewer or the listener. Nigel, you've ran over 20 different businesses?
22, I think it is.
22 different businesses. And that's a bit of advice there, saying you could have achieved almost the same results, or maybe the same results, had you had more of a work-life balance, which is super, super important. I can say that all day long. I do say that. I've only run one business. Coming up from, someone like yourself is, that hits home and should hit home. Awesome. Nigel, leverage. You harped on about it from probably the first 2 weeks that I actually did. We came in contact, right? We didn't understand it until we actually implemented it, until we got our first buyer's agent, until we got our, a team, which we now have. Talk about the importance, if you could, of a team, and then obviously leverage, and I guess what that does to a business, and I guess even your own personal mindset as an owner.
Okay. There's a saying, if it is to be, it is up to me. And I think that there's many business owners who buy into that. If it's going to happen, they need to do it. And there's no leverage in that at all. There's only one way to lever that thought process, and that is to work more and more hours. And I was never scared of hours in my early days. If it took 60 or 80 hours to work each week, that's what I did to get the result I wanted. It isn't until you start having more people working for you that you start to leverage what you do and actually get results from other people. I've got so many examples of this where people with a small team go, I don't want to get big. And you go, really? I think that getting big is easier than being small. And they go, I don't understand how you can say that. And you go, well, when you have a team of 5, one person is sick, and this is an ideal conversation because of how COVID has impacted on businesses. You have one person who goes away, you've lost 20% of your workforce. Now, the largest business I had 120 staff. If one was away, how much did that impact on the ability to deliver? Less than 1%, depending on the role that they were doing. So my feeling is that if you can build a business and manage to delegate most of the responsibilities to teams, those teams take ownership, and you have a system in place for making sure that you've got a finger on the pulse, then you can have freedom from your business to do the things that are most important that a business owner does. And that is inspire, engage, strategic alliances, your team, your suppliers, your customers. Really the figurehead of the business there's a lot of responsibility on them. And by you spending all of your time in the trenches doing the work, you're really abdicating the leadership role.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't think, I mean, from my end, I don't know if I realized that until I actually went out and started to hire people. I mean, you could talk to me all you want. I think that's how I am as a human being, but you really don't see the power of leverage. Especially from, I guess, for a lot of business owners, maybe hiring someone is often seen as an expense. I go hire a buyer's agent, it's going to cost me $70,000 a year, plus I'm going to do that. The way you position that of it's going to cost you, and we worked out the numbers, you said, no, they're going to make you X amount per month.
Yep.
And just that little switch. I mean, I remember having a chat with Frank after I got off the phone to you or off the Zoom. And I sat there and I said, how does he just spin that? And then it literally changed the entire thing. 2 weeks later, we had a buyer's agent. He's the best. He's an absolute jet as well. Now we've got a virtual assistant, a social media specialist. And it's just with that mindset of it's not a cost. It's absolutely an investment, and it is going to make you money. So very, very interesting. Very interesting. I guess it hasn't been since then that our business has seen the level of growth that it has, and really in the last 6 months. So very interesting. Planning is also
modeling is in there. Sorry, just for your listeners, the most important part of that is that you've got a financial model before you take on an extra expense, and understand that sometimes you're going to take a bit of a backward step to take a massive forward step. So initially, especially for people who might need 3 months of training, you spend 3 months where they're a cost, in the belief that they are going to contribute a lot more than they cost, and you're going to come out in a positive situation. And I've said to you many times that your first employee has been an absolute cracker, and that it's not always going to be that way. But the beauty is that you have seen how much benefit there is, and that raises the bar very high.
Yeah, well, I beg to differ. 2 bosses like Adrian and Frank, mate, I reckon every employee is going to love it. Little plug there to come join the team.
What was I thinking?
Big thing part of your business, I would say that it's probably been a big part of your success is the planning. The planning that you put forward, the planning that you put together for us. You call it the 90-day plan. Do you want to touch on that? Because I'll do a horrible illustration of what it actually is.
Well, you do an amazing job of the 90-day plans, I will tell you. But bottom line is that the easy way to look into the future and start getting clear on where you want to take your business, the first thing that you've got to do is say, where do I want to be in 3 years? And because I work with 3 years, some people like to work with 5 or 10 years. To me, 5 or 10 years nowadays is too far away to connect with people's emotions. 3 years, we're all surprised at how quickly 3 years can disappear. So 3 years, you go, if I could be there in 3 years' time, I would be really, really happy. I would feel as though I was successful if I could achieve that result. And you go, that's fantastic. Okay, now, if that's going to look like that in 3 years, what does it need to look like in 2 years? What does it need to look like in 1 year? And how do I break out what we're going to achieve in that next year into 90-day plans, which become more task-orientated rather than vision-orientated? So if I need to achieve that, what I've worked out is I need X amount of dollars and I need these particular people. Well, what's the plan? And which ones are you going to do in the first 90 days? And pacing yourself like this means that you're always very clear on what you're working on. It helps me a lot to be able to work with people's plans, and then helps them, and I hold them accountable to achieve that plan. And sometimes their plan changes, and I love that. because they've realized different things. They've either seen greater opportunities or they've gone, no, I'm going down the wrong path here. I think we should pull that out of the 90-day plan. We should be looking at this. And you go, beauty. As long as we've got an overarching business plan, a 90-day plan that is constantly in line with that long-term plan, then we know we're achieving the results we need to.
100%. And I've gone through a couple of these 90-day plans. I've gone through a 60-day plan, 45-day plans. I've done a fair bit of this planning stuff, these kind of action packs. I feel like this 90-day plan is the perfect amount of time because it allows you to implement those big ticket items, those big things. So launching a podcast or setting up a Facebook campaign or, those big ticket items, but it also, it's a perfect way to kind of get ahead, and it's long enough to be able to actually implement things, whether they be small or large. But it's absolutely a help. One of the first things I do in the morning, every single morning, is look at that 90-day plan, look at the week. Is there anything I've missed to do for the week? Move along. Is it taking me closer to the vision? Is it taking me further away? Which is awesome.
It's very disciplined, and that's good.
No, go on that night. Sorry.
You're very disciplined, and that's great. For a lot of people, especially, there's a lot of big business owners that I work with, which are 30 to 50 employees, and it takes time to communicate and filter through all of the managerial levels and influence the actual working team so that they are all communicated with and they're aligned to that 90-day plan. One of the things that had been implemented in a former company that I worked with was the 6-week sprint. And I found that the 6-week sprint was not working for other than the 1 and 2 man operations. A business that wanted to have more planning and had more infrastructure was being far more strategic than just doing a 6-week sprint. That 90-day plan needed to be in line with the 3-year business plan, and having that tracking nicely means that we achieve the results that they want to achieve. Yeah.
Super important. Super important. Gives you absolute purpose for the day. And it really, a lot of the time when I'm feeling a little bit lost or what do I need to do? Bang, straight back to the 90-day plan, which is,
that's good.
For a lot of business owners, I think a problem, potentially. Not sure. Let it back to yourself, because obviously you got an end goal with this business. And obviously, you already have left a legacy, but what legacy do you want to either leave with this business or even just on your own personal life? Bit of a deep question here, Nigel. Don't tear up on me.
That's a really deep question, and it's probably something that I couldn't have answered until maybe 2-3 years ago.
Okay.
I did an immersion, which was a 4-day immersion called Money in You, and and I'm giving them a big plug because that 4-day immersion gave me an amazing change of mindset, and it really got me to think about what my purpose was. And my purpose wasn't to try and be a multi-millionaire. It wasn't actually about money. What it was about helping people. I love growing business. I am a very competitive person, and when I work with a company, my goal is to help them grow to be the company that they want to be. Their success is my success. I used to have 14 retail stores, and the ones that were flying, I'd be feeling fantastic about. The ones that were failing, I'd feel really bad about. And I would help the ones that were failing to try and get them to achieve better and better results. This is probably why I love the coaching as much as I do. When it comes to my purpose is to help people love business. I have absolutely loved working, and I love the financial modeling, putting the planning together, and then seeing the plan come to fruition. So that's the buzz for me, and I think the buzz for me will continue for a long time to come. It's not a matter of the hours that I'm doing, it's about the businesses that I'm helping and seeing them grow.
Beautiful answer, Nigel. Now, we've touched on a fair few things. Obviously, how you got into the world of business coaching, your relationship with failure. If you would do anything differently, with your business or in personal life, looking back at it, which I don't know if I got a straight answer out of that, but it was a good answer nonetheless. Obviously, relationship with leverage and planning, and even the legacy that you are wanting to leave through this business. If we could bring it down to just one big takeaway or one bit of advice relating to business for the viewers, for the listeners, what would it be from you?
Don't try and do it all yourself.
Awesome.
I think one of the things which I always refer myself back to, and this is about your industry, I went and spoke to an investor and a financial planner way back in, it would have been my late 20s. And I sat down, and in typical, I'm a qualified engineer, so I think in an engineering fashion. And this guy gave me a whole lot of information, and I turned around and I said, you know what, I can do that all myself. Why would I pay this guy a percentage of everything that comes in when I could follow that? The problem is that I had no one holding me accountable to it. And I never set up super in my early days. I didn't really have the time to go out and buy investment properties until much later in my working life. If I had taken his advice and got him on board, which probably would have cost me $2,000 or $3,000 back then, I hate to think what the difference would be in return from taking that advice and allowing him to help me and hold me accountable to do it. So don't do it all yourself. Actually allow others to bring in the expertise to help you achieve your goals. Because if you get the right people on board, you will be a lot further ahead. And, with super, you start when you're 20 and you finish when you're 60, and the assets that you've got in there have magically turned up because it's just this small amount of money going in all the time. But if you don't put that money aside, then you don't have the compounding advantages of starting early. So I say to anyone, if you're getting into business, get your financial modeling right, get your planning right, and make sure that you're setting yourself to win in every aspect, and that's work-life balance.
I love it. That's half my job as a business owner is to show people that with a team who does something every single day, with a business owner, to relate it back to you, who's ran 22 businesses, to have access to that person and have them part of your team is a lot more than the fee that you pay. You get a lot more. I mean, for us personally, using yourself, I reckon we probably would have 30x'd the investment that we make with yourself. If I'd be completely honest with you, maybe even 50 potentially. And not even from a financial point as well, from all facets of life, that's how I kind of introduced you before you came on. You've changed not just our business, you've changed absolutely everything. And I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you for coming on to the show today. All your notes, all your information is going to be in the show notes, but in case someone doesn't read the show notes, how does someone get in contact with you and your team at Elevate Biz?
The best scenario is probably just to send me an email at this point in time, nigel@elevatebiz.com.au, and I will send them free of charge a business diagnostic so that they can actually have a visual representation of what their business currently looks like, what areas they should work on. And if they need any comments or any feedback from that when they submit it, then hey, let's see what they can get from it and what they would like to use from it. It's a 100-question diagnostic, and it takes about 20 minutes to fill out. You've got to be honest with yourself, and it gives you an amazing result.
There you have it, guys. Well, every business owner, flick that through, because I've looked at that as well, and it is an absolute cracker. It gives you a hell of a lot of clarity. So again, Nigel, thank you so much for everything you've done for ourselves, but even just giving this amount of value to the viewers and the listeners. So thank you very much, Mr. Nigel from Elevate Biz. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Adrian. Look forward to catching up.
If you like today's podcast, then you're absolutely going to love the Invest in You Facebook group, where we share a bunch of valuable tips and tricks on property investing for our exclusive community. Come join us and let's level up.